Hello and welcome to this NDTV special which is coming to you live from Gujarat. Now, on Independence Day, when 11 men convicted for the gang rape and murder in the Bilkis Bano case walked out of prison on early release, it sent shockwaves across the country. Images of them being garlanded and fed laddus. Now, while it was clear that the men had been released by a committee set up by the Gujarat government, there was always a degree of confusion as to at what level had their release been cleared given the extreme nature of their crimes. The answers to that were never forthcoming because both the Gujarat government and the centre, which is technically supposed to sign off on release of this nature, stonewalled any attempts for details. But now, since the matter went to the Supreme Court, a close to 500-page affidavit filed by the Gujarat government in the Supreme Court has revealed new details, shocking details about how the release of this men was cleared at the highest level and how that release may have, in a sense, ignored objections from, or very serious objections from key stakeholders that were responsible for putting these men away in the first place. So let's look at some of the shockers that have emerged from NDTV's deep dive into these court documents, starting with shocker number one. The centre, it turns out, the Home Ministry no less, did actually approve the release of these 11 men and did so in a manner of just 2 weeks. The Gujarat government wrote to the centre on the 28th of June this year asking if the men could be released. The Home Ministry wrote back on 11th July in just a course of 14 days saying yes, they could. This one-page note from the Home Ministry cited no reasons for the release of these men. It just simply cleared their release. Shocker number two. This was despite the fact that there was objections both by the CBI, the agency which prosecuted this case and put the men away, as well as the special court in Mumbai which had actually convicted them. The CBI wrote to the Gujarat government saying that the offence committed by them is heinous, grave and serious, and so they shouldn't be released. The special judge said this is the worst form of hate crime and a crime against humanity and that they do not deserve premature release. And yet they were released. Shocker number three. The Gujarat government in its affidavit has sought to justify the release on grounds that there was good behavior by these men during the time they were in prison and during the time when they were out on parole. But did they ignore crucial red flags in this justification? In fact, the Gujarat government's own court documents suggest that the convicts were issued multiple warnings for parole violations. On a number of occasions, these men came back late from their parole and were warned again and again. Even more seriously, media reports, not just one but several, pointed to how these convicts actually have been accused of threatening and harassing witnesses when they were out on parole. In fact, media reports suggest that there were even FIRs that were lodged against them for this kind of behavior, raising a serious question mark over the defense that they were released on grounds of good behavior. Shocker number four. Despite these heinous charges, and to the point about these men coming out on parole, the court documents show that these men enjoyed thousands of days of freedom in the form of furloughs and in the form of parole. Adding up some of those days puts, in the case of almost all these men, freedoms enjoyed anywhere between the range of 3 to 4.5 years the time they were out of jail. One of them, Ramesh Bhai Chandana, was the maximum. He enjoyed the most number of leaves, clocking in at almost over 4 years if you add all the days up, raising once again questions whether the ground was being set for the release of these men from much earlier. The final shocker, shocker number five, that while releasing the Bilkis rapists, did the Gujarat government, did the police ignore her own protection? During the hearing or during the course of the panel, the panel set up by the Gujarat government to deliberate over the release, one of the judges present asked what about the security provided to Bilkis and her family when these men were to be released. Police officials gathered at that meeting said that they are still in the process of gathering the evidence about whether or not and how security will be provided to her. But those details apparently never emerged or were certainly not recorded in the minutes of that meeting, nor was the process of releasing these men put on hold in order for security to be provided to Bilkis, her family members, and perhaps other witnesses as well. They went ahead and released them anyway. Now it's worth noting, as we and others had reported earlier, that even this committee that was set up, serious questions over whether they were in fact fair and neutral, because many of the members of this committee were actually linked to the ruling BJP, including 2 BJP MLAs and several other members who were described in the minutes as social workers but were actually part of the BJP. Now, so far, the centre or the Gujarat government hasn't really responded to all of these questions and all of these controversies. But while today I was on the campaign trail here in Gujarat, where as we know an election is going on, I had a chance to actually interview some of the leaders of the BJP who were part of the campaign. And one of them was Prahlad Joshi, who is the Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister, who I spoke to while he was part of a BJP Gaurav Yatra, where he effectively defended the decision to release these men. Let's listen. Prahlad, but one issue has come up just now, that it has turned out that it was the centre, that is, which opposition has raised, that the centre also cleared the release of these Bilkis rapists in the case that just came out. So how would you defend that? Home Ministry personally cleared it.
No, that is, see, after when having being in prison for some time, there is a provision for that. Accordingly, as per the law, it is done, and there are some jurists in that. It is not that government alone has taken decision.
But isn't it such a heinous crime? People are saying, how can you release people who've been convicted of gang rape, murder? A child was also murdered.
After having been in the prison for quite some time, if their behavior on that, there are so many incidents. I don't want to go into detail that.
But do you personally feel it was okay that they were released?
I have said no. When the government and the concerned people have taken decision, I don't want to make any comment on that, and I don't find anything wrong in that, because it is done as per the process of the law.
आप इसको डिफेंड करेंगे? ऐसे इतना बड़ा कांड हो गया और ये लोग बाहर आ गए।
देखिए, 2 चीज होती है किसी भी केस पे, जो कन्विक्टेड जो होता है जितने सालों के लिए तय किया जाता है, उसके बाद राज्य सरकार के पास हर, जैसे कि 2 अक्टूबर होती है, जयंती होती है, 15 अगस्त होती है, उस दिन ऐसे कुछ जो अच्छा व्यवहार किया होता है उन लोगों को छोड़ा जाता है। तो दिस मैटर, मेरा ये मानना है कि इसको जानबूझकर, एक विशेष वर्ग से जुड़ा हुआ है इसलिए कुछ लोगों ने जानबूझकर इसको पूरे देश के भीतर एक अलग तरीके से माहौल बनाने का प्रयास किया। हम ये जरूर मानते हैं,
भाजपा के लोगों ने भी इस पे आपत्ति जताई।
मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ, विशेष वर्ग के जानबूझ के, मैं ये मानता हूँ कि किसी भी अपराधी के साथ प्यारा भरा व्यवहार नहीं हो सकता, उसको सजा मिलनी ही चाहिए। किसी भी, वो कितने साल जेल में रहे, कि क्या उनके साथ व्यवहार हुआ है, उस पर भी बात कहीं ना कहीं होनी चाहिए। और खुल के इस मामले में कोई भी उसको डिफेंड नहीं कर रहा, जो हकीकत है वो सब लोग बोल रहे हैं।
नहीं, लेकिन आप नहीं कहते अल्पेश, जैसे बाकी विपक्ष कह रही है कि भाजपा महिलाओं की बात करती है, लेकिन किसी ऐसे व्यक्ति जो प्रहलाद जी कह रहे हैं कि आपने अगर अपना टाइम सर्व किया वो अलग चीज है, बट ये इस किस्म का इतना ग्रेव क्राइम है, इतना मेजर है कि उस पर किस तरह से छोड़ दिया, उस पर केंद्र सरकार ने भी छुड़ा दिया और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने, दोनों ने।
देखिए, जुडिशरी की बात है, बट महिलाओं की बात होती है तो महिलाएं होती हैं, और अगर इस तरह का जो भी कुछ हुआ है, मैं तो उस बात को नहीं मानता, क्योंकि देखिए, अगर आपने कोई क्राइम किया और फिर व्यवहार अच्छा है तो वो बात भी गलत है। और ऐसे लोगों को, जो मैंने देखा कि शर्मनाक बात है कि वो मिठाई बांट रहे थे और इस तरह की बातें कर रहे थे, एक महिला के साथ जो कुछ भी हुआ, मैं तो उस बात को समर्थन नहीं करता। मैं तो ये मानता हूँ कि जितने भी दोषी हैं उनको कड़े से कड़े सजा मिलनी चाहिए, और इसको किसी जाति या धर्म से नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए। वो महिला के साथ हुआ है तो महिला को न्याय पूरी तरह से मिलना चाहिए।